Hello, welcome to the Is It Just Me podcast. I am your host, Dr. Angie Ange. This podcast will entail truthful, transparent conversation about everyday life and the lessons learned. This podcast is for everyone from teenagers to the elderly. Although some topics may be rated R, every conversation is based on living life and learning life lessons. Today's topic is going to be on things I would teach my younger self. And as you go through life and as you grow and you mature, there's so many things that you learn along the way. And this is one of the reasons that I named the podcast Is It Just Me? Because sometimes when you go through life and you go through certain things, you think that in your mind, you might be thinking like you're the only one that's experiencing these things. But in all actuality, there's someone who has experienced something similar to what you're going through. There are no two exact experiences in going through life lessons, but there's similar incidences and similar life lessons that we all have went through and we all had to learn. Being an individual growing up who raised their self, a lot of things that I learned by trial and error because I didn't have anyone to teach me certain things. And even though I had a great relationship with my mother while she was incarcerated, a lot of the lessons came after the fact. My mother instilled a lot of things in me from behind bars that I still carry with me to this day. But some of the lessons that I learned after the fact or after the mistake was made because I didn't have anyone physically directly there to teach me in that moment. So the lesson always came after the mistake was made. I'm still growing every day. And one of the things I like to always say is that I'm constantly glowing and growing because as you go through life, you're continuously growing and you're going to continuously learn things. Something that I always say and I wholeheartedly believe is that if you're the same person today that you were yesterday, then you've wasted 24 hours of your life. Now, that doesn't mean that you've had to make some drastic or significant change from one day to the next. But I just live my life in learning as I go along. And every day I would like to learn something new or just broaden my knowledge and broaden the type of individual that I am. And going through life, everyone makes mistakes. There's no perfect person. But I always believe in learning from the mistakes that I made. So as an adult, if I would have knew some of the things that I know today, these are the things that I'm saying I would have taught my younger self. The first thing that I would have taught my younger self is that I'm not responsible for any of the childhood trauma that I experienced. For those of you that know my story, that read my book, if you haven't, it's available on Amazon, Angie's Journey, Beating the Odds. My mother was incarcerated. My father was battling drug addiction. I grew up in and out of foster care and living with different relatives and had a lot of childhood trauma. And at a young age, I didn't understand that what I was going through was not my fault. I've healed from my childhood trauma, and me healing from my childhood trauma, I've learned that I'm not responsible for anything that I experience. So that's one of the reasons I was able to heal from it, glow, and grow from it because it was not my fault. Another thing that I would teach my younger self is to love everything about you, flaws and all. And I learned that at a young age that if you love everything about you, even the things that you don't like about yourself, if you love everything about you, no one can use anything against you. And I'm big on that. There's nothing that anybody can say to me that's going to make me feel any kind of way because I accept everything about me, my flaws and all. That's something that I would teach my younger self because when I was younger, there were certain things that I didn't like about me. And I would allow other people to use those things to get me upset. And growing and learning, that's something that I would teach myself. Love everything about you, flaws and all. The main thing, and I should have said this first, the first main thing that I would have taught my younger self is to always take care of yourself first because you can't pour from an empty cup. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm very generous, I'm very giving, I'm very selfless. And I have a tendency to always want to help people when they need my help. But when it's my turn for needing help, I'm just standing there out lonely on a limb. And not to say that it's going to change the individual that I am, it just changes the individuals that I choose to help. I have to make sure that I'm good first if I'm going to make sure someone else is good. So I live by, I come first. And no matter what your situation is, if you're my friend, you're somebody I consider family, if you need my help and I'm not able to help myself first, then I can't help you. And I wasn't always like that. I was always the one that was willing to run and help and try to help and try to help and try to help. And then at the end of the day, when it's my turn, no one's there to help you. So always take care of yourself first because you can't pour from an empty cup. Is something that I would have taught my younger self. Another thing that I would have taught my younger self is information without understanding means nothing. And I know there's quite a few people who probably is like, well, what does that mean? And that means that just because you have information doesn't mean anything. If you don't understand how vital or how significant that information is, that information that you hold on to means nothing. You need to understand what it is that you're trying to put out there or what it is that you're trying to do. You have to have an understanding of information because just having information and doing nothing with it means absolutely nothing. Growth is a series of mistakes. That's the only way you learn. That's something that I would teach my younger self. I used to be so hard on myself about certain things and about making mistakes and about making the wrong choices and I could have did better or I should have did this or I should have followed my first intuition. And glowing and growing, I've learned that in life things are going to happen. Mistakes are going to happen. But it's a when you make a conscious choice to learn from those mistakes, that's how you grow. If you continue to make the same mistakes, that's a choice. So you're choosing to go through those things. But once you realize that you're growing from the mistakes, that's how you know that you're learning. Another thing I would teach myself is people opinions of you, it's none of your business. And I learned that when I was more so like a young adult because I know there's quite a few people who care what other people think about them or what other people have to say about them. And I'm one of those individuals, I could care less. At the end of the day, you're going to feel how you feel. I'm going to feel how I feel. I'm not one to be somewhere trying to run and put the truth out there because, in the words of Charlemagne the God, no one cares about the truth when the lie is more entertaining. So people's opinion of you is none of your business. You can have an opinion. They're just like assholes. The majority of the people have one, but that's none of your business. It's like you're going to feel how you want to feel. I'm not clearing shit up. Feel how you feel and keep it moving. The next thing that I would have taught to my younger self, and it would have saved a lot of aggravation growing up, is that people will love you for being you and hate you for the same reason. So I get a lot of individuals who know me and some who don't when I put my videos on social media or I do my podcast. And the feedback that I get is like, girl, you keep it so real. And what's crazy is there's some people who love me for that, but there's also some people that hate me for that same reason. And in my opinion, the people that hate me for me being real are people who wish that they had that and they wish that they were real, but they $3 bills. So we already know that's the reason why they can't relate because they don't know what it's like to be real. Had I known that as a kid, it would have saved me a lot of aggravation and a lot of hurt from dealing with certain individuals. But you live and you learn. Something that I learned late in life, and I learned it around the time that I caught a legal situation that had got myself in some trouble, is that a private life is a happy life. The less you reveal, the better. And I had got to a point in my life, I'm very transparent. So if I make a choice, I made the choice. It is what it is. But I started noticing that in me being transparent, I was giving a little bit more to other individuals than what I should have. I was letting them know everything that's going on in my life. And they were sitting down behind my back talking about me. And it's just like, so if I never let y'all know what was going on, you wouldn't have been able to talk about it. You could have speculated and you could have talked about what you wanted to talk about, but I didn't feed you the information. I didn't let you know what was going on. So a private life is a happy life. The less you reveal, the better. I also learned, and I would teach my younger self, is don't assume you know a person by what you heard. Get to know the person for yourself because people be lying, messy, and miserable. I had to learn that based off of a couple of one sided friendships that I had. I'm a very loyal person. So if I'm your friend, I'm your friend and I'm riding with you. Now, That doesn't mean that I'm a yes ma'am you to death. That just means if you're wrong, I'm going to let you know that you're wrong, but I'm not going to speak on you negative outside of our friendship. I'm not going to let somebody else be like, oh yeah, she was wrong for that. I'm riding with you. And riding with certain individuals, and I'm saying riding with them and my loyalty lies with them, I realized that a couple of individuals or people that they were claiming were not good people turned out to be okay people. It was just the person that was relaying the message was a liar, messy, and fucking miserable. So I learned, don't assume that you know a person. Get to know a person for yourself because people be lying. Another thing that I learned is the best way to keep your enemies and individuals that you don't really know out of your business is to stop telling your so-called friends and phony ass family members. And I learned this a few years back, especially when it pertained to my relationship. Again, I'm very transparent. So if something happened, I'm telling what happened. If my man pissed me off, I'm telling he pissed me off. If we fought, I'm saying we fought. Whatever the situation was, only to find out that these same individuals that I trust and I'm confiding in are somewhere talking about me and the situation to other individuals. And it's just like, where they do that at? But that's something I would teach my younger self. Something else that I would teach my younger self, and this is big for me, is don't be afraid to trust people. Just be careful with what you trust people with. Like I stated earlier, I'm very transparent. So a lot of things, it's just like it is what it is. But it's just certain things as I've gotten older and as I went through life that I learned. It's like, you know what, everything is not for everybody. So there's no need for me to have to reveal every single aspect of my life to you. I just have to pick and choose who needs to know what if I felt like letting anybody know anything. Something that I learned kind of late in life, I was an adult when I learned this, and I would have taught my younger self this, is that communication can't be one sided. And good communication requires open minded, mature individuals to communicate and have a conversation, even when they disagree. This I live by because there's a lot of individuals who don't know how to communicate. And I know some people be like, oh, when I get mad, I shut down. You have to grow up and you have to learn to communicate. If something made you upset, you need to verbalize that it made you upset. If something made you sad, you need to verbalize that it made you sad. People are not mind readers, and everyone is going to not always agree with something that we do. You're going to have someone that disagrees with you. So if you're not mature enough to be able to communicate and have an open conversation about the situation, then you need to grow up. That's something that I wish I definitely would have taught my younger self that because I've dealt with individuals who don't know how to communicate and I allowed them to shut down and not want to speak and things like that. And I'm guilty of it as well. I used to be the type of individual that if somebody did something to me, I felt like, you know what the fuck you did. I don't need to tell you what you did. So I would stop speaking. But as I've gotten older, it was like, no, that's not going to work because people don't read your mind. And sometimes people know what they did, but it's not intentional. So if you speak on it and you're able to communicate about it, then you're able to move forward. Another thing, and this is at the top of my thing I would have taught my younger self, is that blood only makes you a relative. That's it. Blood does not define your loyalty to me. Blood does not define how much you love me. Blood does not define that you like me. Blood is just, we share a bloodline. You're just a relative. That's it. I lived with a couple of relatives when I was younger, and to this day, I will never say that they're my family because the way they mistreated me when I was a kid. Knowing that I didn't have anyone, my mom was in prison, my father was battling drug addiction, and for you to open your doors and to let me in your home and to mistreat me, knowing the situation, you was just a fucked up person. Out of all of the relatives that stepped up to try to say that they wanted to help me when my mom was in prison and my father was battling drug addiction, one relative treated me good. One. I went to live with her after I graduated from the eighth grade. She was the only one that treated me like as if I was family. Her and I are not on speaking terms today, but that's another story for another time. But when she took me in her home and she allowed me to live with her, she treated me like I was family. One relative of all the relatives that I lived with growing up as a kid, she was the only one. So blood makes you just a relative. Something that I've learned as an adult, and I would have taught my younger self this had I known. Hindsight is 2020. Most people want to see you doing good, just not better than them. And that's one of the reasons that I fell back from social media and posting certain things. And when I say fell back from social media, yes, I am on social media. Yes, I do post videos, but I don't post as much as I used to. I used to post if I got good news or if I was doing this or I'm going on a trip. I realized that posting all of the good things only brings jealousy and envy from individuals that some of them that don't really even know you personally, but people really do not want to see you doing better than them. And it's so sad that so many people have that crab in the barrel mentality. And I don't understand it. I will never understand it because I don't have that mentality. So it's hard for me to understand certain things that I don't possess. But I realize that it's out there. So that's why I fell back from posting certain things. And let's not get it twisted. I still post if I go on a trip or something like that. But sharing good news, if I'm making moves or something, I no longer do that because people want to see you doing good, just not better than them. Another thing that I would have taught my younger self is life has always been short. So don't let people use that excuse to mistreat you and accept their bullshit. And that's something that a lot of people always say, oh, life is short. You need to speak to your brother. Life is short. You need to speak to your aunt. Life is short. And it's like, life always been short. Life didn't just get short. And if somebody mistreated me or somebody did something to me, I don't give a fuck if it's a brother, a grandmother, an uncle, a cousin. We don't have nothing to talk about. And I don't have to accept your bullshit. Life didn't just get short yesterday. Life has always been short. So that's something that I would teach my younger self because I've allowed my younger self to tolerate a lot of bullshit from individuals just because life is short and they were relatives. And it's like, life has always been short. So don't let anybody convince you into thinking because life is short, you have to accept other people's bullshit. Not happening. The last thing that I would teach my younger self is that there are a lot of envious, jealous, toxic, unhealed people walking around pretending to be your friend, and some may even be your relative. But it's okay to disconnect from them for your own peace. And I didn't know what it meant to have my own peace until I was an adult after my mom had passed and after I had went to prison and I did time and I came home and I started rebuilding and doing things. And I separated from so many people. It was just me and my really immediate family and my immediate close friends that I found what peace is. And I love it here. I love it here. And it's definitely difficult to get next to me if you're not next to me. And there's no spinning the block with me. So if you fuck up, that's just it. You fucked up. This is not the old ends that's allowing multiple red flags and multiple mistakes to happen because people know what the fuck they be doing. I'm not that individual that's going to continue to tolerate that from individuals because I don't treat individuals like that. As a young person, had I known that there were so many envious, jealous, toxic, unhealed people, it would have saved me a lot of aggravation in growing up. So that's something I definitely would teach my younger self is that it's okay to separate from them no matter who it is. And I know there's some individuals that be like, oh, but that's your mother or that's your brother or that's your aunt. And it's like, stop trying to convince people to accept shit that you know that you would not accept. Stop trying to get people to accept bullshit that you know you would not accept. Whether it's a mother, a brother, an uncle, a cousin, a grandmother, a grandfather, you are entitled to walk away from anyone who threatens your sense of peace. And that's something that I wish my younger self would have known, but the grown Ange knows it, and I will be treating people accordingly and moving accordingly. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Is It Just Me? Hope you join me next week where we're going to discuss handling conflicts with family and friends.